In the words of Nino Brown, the great philosopher, money talks, BS runs the marathon. Well, Shad has spent a lot of money and he's got a lot of BS. How much longer he's going to put up with it? We'll talk about it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen and reminding you to go to our YouTube page that is called Locked On Jaguars to watch the podcast, and make sure you listen wherever you hear your podcast to tap in so you do not miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Gang Time. Download the Gang Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. I'd like to thank the everydayers for joining us here every single day on Locked On Jaguars. Now I'll let you know what we're going to talk about today. In segment number 3, I'm going to let y'all know why I'm not doing any draft talk. Doesn't make any sense. Not that it's too early chronologically to start taking a look forward, obviously, since the Jags are 0-4, but it is too early from a philosophical standpoint, because if they don't make changes, it's like going to buy a nice A5 Wagyu and sticking it in your refrigerator where all the other rotten food is. It ain't going to do any good. All right. In the middle of the show, we're going to talk smoke and fire. People say that where there's smoke, there's always fire. Yeah, but there's also someone who ignited that fire. So we'll look a little bit further and a little bit deeper into that. First and foremost, talk is cheap. Everybody's been talking for a long time in the offseason about how to get better. And we wanted all of these press conferences from Doug, and we wanted to hear from Trent, Baalke, and we wanted to hear from Shad, and we heard from them all. And Shad even gave us some stuff that we had never gotten before, where he said that this is the best Jaguar team ever assembled, coaches, players, and that was a bunch of BS. I totally disagree with that. However, we're going to talk about them talking, right? There's just not enough action. Trevor Lawrence has been at the podium. Everyone has pointed at themselves. Everyone has taken the blame. Everyone has taken accountability and responsibility to a certain degree anyway. And none of it seems to have done any good, right? They're still 0-4. Shad says they have to win now. 4 weeks in, they're the only winless team in the National Football League. I saw someone today say, well, they're real close to being 3-1, and they're right. But in typical fashion, when you're close to being something, you're always the thing that you're not, right? They're close to being it, but if you're either close or you're not. The Jaguars are always not. They're always so close, and they always have this, man, if we could just fix this, right? They fix that, and then the very next week, something else happens. And then the very next week, something else happens. Well, that leads to a bunch of dialogue or monologue or whatever you want to call it, whether they're saying it on their own or whether they're answering questions, where you get logical explanations as to why everything happened. It's now turned to the point where Doug Peterson says, coaches, we only coach. It's a two-way street. We can't get it done. He's exactly right. Whether y'all want to hear it or not, and whether folks believe that he's throwing people under the bus, whether folks think that that's a lack of accountability, it is. So let me go to it. Let me tell you exactly why I feel this way about the happenings here in Jacksonville. I know people don't like to hear this, but two things can be wrong. Two things can be right at the exact same time, just like two things can be wrong at the exact same time. Doug Peterson is not wrong when he says players have to play and players have to make plays and we have to play smart. He's not wrong about that in any form of imagination that we want to think he is wrong. I think the only thing that makes it seem like he's wrong is y'all don't want to hear it from him because y'all think he's wrong about something as well. You got me? I really think that's the case. I think y'all believe he's wrong, like wrong as in the wrong person for the job at this point. You might be right, but it still doesn't take away from the fact I'm gonna give y'all an analogy. I got. It still doesn't take away from the fact that there could also still be some truth into some of the things that he's saying. The analogy I'm gonna give you that's cracking me up is one of my favorite preachers, a man named Landon Williams, who passed on a couple of years ago. He's a really good mentor, one of the smartest people I've ever met. He says, you can learn from a drunk on the sidewalk in front of a liquor store. You don't know that dude's story. You don't know why he ended up the way that he ended up, but he can teach you something. And I have always held on to that. So I'm not saying Doug Peterson is drunk. What I am saying is he could be right, but still wrong about his part in it as well. Have the players played well? Hell no. All you got to do is look at some of the tweets that I see. They haven't. A lot of the tweets that I see say Trayvon ain't better than Aiden Hutchinson. It might be true. I ain't going to sit here and start debating that today. That gives me a headache. There are people that know that Brandon Sheriff just seems like, well, he's not the problem, but he's not the solution. There are folks that say Ezra Cleveland is a little underwhelming. There are folks that say Gabe Davis isn't worth the money because he got hit in the face with a ball once or twice. And Christian Kirk has dropped passes. They also admit that Trevor Lawrence has overthrown and overshot people when they were wide open for big plays. They also admit that Travis Etienne has to hold on to the ball in Miami, and that there have been a lot of dumb plays with personal fouls and people jumping offside and the legal procedure, which all leads to, at the end of the day, and Doug has said this to a certain degree, it's all on him. It's practice. There's also the people that believe that this team has practiced well, but it hasn't transferred the practice habits into game day. And I'll tell you a simple reason for that, because when you're in practice, ain't nobody punching you in the face with bad intentions. Even if you're hitting or you're being physical in practice, you're all on the same team. Well, until somebody else comes in and schemes you up, somebody that's been watching your tape, somebody that has been looking at all of your weaknesses and strengths, none of that stuff is going to matter anyway. So Doug is exactly right and in agreement with a lot of fans that there are a lot of things that they're leaving on the field. I think where he gets into a problem with people believing him is there's also a lot of things that left to be desired about your own coaching staff, who you fired as opposed to who you retained, what your message is. No reason to get mad now when you've been acting happy this whole time, and all of a sudden you get mad because ain't nobody going to believe you, including the players that play for you. You and Trent seem to be in lockstep with everything, because I think both of you were getting along for the fact that y'all had to get along, because if you didn't get along, that man might have got rid of one of you or both. So it was better for you to put up a united front. And all I'll tell you about that is this. I think when you're a coach, your allegiance should be to the organization and to the players, and to do what is absolutely best for the organization and the players, even if that means not getting along with the GM, even if that means being honest in your assessment with the players. Doug said it so much yesterday. He said, hey, I'm honest with them. I'm going to always be honest with them, and I'm always have their back. Do I believe that? For the most part, yeah, I do. I don't have any reason to believe that Doug Peterson is not telling the truth about that. I do, however, question how effective his the way that he goes about that is. And how effective that is, the reason why I can question that, even though I'm not privy to those conversations, is because I look at the standings and they're 0-4, and I look at their roster, and I think their roster is better than 0-4. It leads me to believe that even though I have an appreciation for them getting to this point, and I'll get into this in segment 2, that maybe he was the right man for the job based on where they were at the time. But now we have to investigate from this point forward if he's the right man for the job to get them to the next level. And I don't think so. And that ain't got nothing to do with how good of a coach he is or isn't. It has something to do with how good of a coach he is to get them from where they are now, which has regressed since the second half of last season. And can he be the person to turn it around? I do not believe that. Let's go with smoke, fire, and cause. We see smoke. We know there's a fire because right now it's a dumpster fire. What is the overall cause of it? And how does the owner fix it? We'll get into all of that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, and they got some big stuff for you right now at the start of this season. Check this out. First of all, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when your first $5 bet is placed. That's right. You don't have to win. You just have to make the bet and you'll get $200 in bonus bets to play with. So once you make your bets, the thing that FanDuel has now, they have a feature where you don't have to leave the page where your bets are and refresh and going back and forth. If you got a hunch right then and there, right in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you make your bets. Not only is FanDuel the number one sports book in America, but it's also now very, very, very convenient for you to monitor everything that you do on FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com, America's number one sports book. All right, segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. All right, smoke, fire, cause. The smoke, the team constantly not playing up to their potential when they need it the most, on the big drives, on the big defensive possessions, on third down. You see, there's a theme here, right? There's a theme here. When they drop a ball on first or second down after what seems like to be a good play call, that's huge. When they start a drive out and they have some momentum and they get a 15 or a 5-yard penalty for illegal procedure, or their constant issues of getting plays off before that clock, the play clock goes down, and them having to burn timeouts and kill their own momentum, that's big. All of those things seem small, like a little bit of smoke, right? Until you look at the fact that that smoke is always there. You're in a constant state of smelling something that doesn't seem right, even when the game is going on and maybe the Jaguars are even winning, right? So there's this constant, I smell something, even when they're winning. It's almost as if you could be up 17-7 and a guy drop a critical pass that would have got you in the field goal range. 17-7 and you get a bad penalty that kind of pushes you back so it's not 24-7. 17-7 and a guy fumbles the ball going into the end zone for a touchdown. All of these things just keep popping up over and over. So now you're no longer paying attention to the smoke when the team loses 9 games in a row. You start looking at the fire aspect of it, not fire as in pink slip fire, but the sources of the smoke, like the heat. What is the real problem in this organization? And we can park it right there for a minute, because a lot of people think the real problem in the organization is Press Taylor. Well, let me go back. It was Luke Fortner. Then it's Press Taylor. Then it's the fact that Hutchinson's better than Trayvon. Then it's injuries. Then it's the offensive line as a whole. Then it's this Trent Baalke, and they're just not very good. But when you look deeper, this organization for the last decade or more has had one really, really good season. And then 2 seasons, they had their magic and they had their reasons, like the Jaguars starting out 8-3 last year was a reason before the decline. And then the Jaguars getting off to a slow start. And then all of a sudden winning all those games down the stretch in 2022. That was nice. But if you're really looking at it from a perspective of, okay, when were they really close and when were they really good? That was 2017. What's the common denominator of all of that? And we can look at that as the cause. And that is Shad Khan. And it's not for a lack of effort. Shad Khan has spent so much money. He started the thing that I don't know if he probably didn't do it because of me, but it's common sense. At some point, you have to retain players. You can't just keep letting players go. And there are a lot of people that probably went against me on this, but one of those players, in my opinion, was Jawan Taylor. Who do we miss Jawan Taylor now? PFF says he's the 5th ranked tackle in the league this year. Everybody wanted to focus on the fact he wasn't all that good. Yeah, so I want y'all to think about this. They said that Jawan Taylor wasn't worth $20 million. He was worth $17 or $18 million. Think about all the money they wasted on Cam Robinson. Think about all the money that they wasted on, in my opinion, Ezra Cleveland and then Brandon Sheriff. And you tell me that he wasn't worth it. Yeah, he was worth it. Maybe they could have worked something out with Rayshon Jenkins, who's playing his butt off right now in Seattle, right? I mean, there are a lot of things that we can look back on that were the problem. And it doesn't matter how much money you spend, it's where you spend the money. Shad Khan doesn't do personnel decisions, but he has put someone in charge who does personnel that I don't think has a track record or is very good at doing personnel. And when it comes to Trent Baalke, there's more than just picking players. There's the attitude about picking said players. There's when you set the course and the template and you're the captain of the ship, basically the entire organization. If you can't get people to run with you out of anything more than fear and getting fired, if you can't get people because of just who you are and the work that you do and the trust that they believe in you, it just does not work. And it's not going to matter who you pick. And that's why I keep telling everybody it's like getting Japanese A5 Wagyu or something. And then when you do that, you put it in a rotten refrigerator or cooking it in dirty pots and pans. It does not matter what the ingredients are if the kitchen is dirty. And I just think the Jaguars kitchen is dirty. And I think Shad Khan, for some reason, just has this fear of totally detaching from everything and starting all over again. That leads to too much guesswork, in my opinion. It leads to the kind of guesswork that makes you try to wonder and figure out, okay, what's the problem? Did I solve it? I tell you what, maybe the next time, Shad, when you're in charge of, like you're always going to be in charge, but when you're charged with fixing the organization, it's really, really easy to figure out what the problem is. Know what you can get rid of and know what you can't. You can't get rid of players you paid a whole bunch of money to, and that probably wouldn't be smart anyway. What you can do, though, is totally gut this thing and start over. And I know that sounds like me saying just get rid of a bunch of people that have livelihoods and families. And I'm going to tell you that comes with the job. That comes with the territory. You can't avoid that. And they're grown. They've done this before. The reason why they were available for you because somebody fired them somewhere else. You paid them enough money that they'll be all right, and hopefully they'll be employed somewhere else. But you just can't keep disappointing and not doing the right thing by the players that you do have. And mainly, you can't keep doing this to the fans. And I know the fans will fan. And I have jokingly said this about fans in the past, but I can do that because I sit behind my desk and do podcasts every day. So I can always say, oh, it doesn't matter what they do. The fans will be right back next summer. And that is true. But as the owner, even though I can say it, as the owner, I don't think it's smart to take advantage of that. Even though I know you're probably doing the best you can because the best seems like, let me get a new stadium. Let me get new facilities. Let me make sure that we have, some international funds coming through here and helping the Jaguars meet their bottom line so they can compete with everybody else. Let me give them the best of the best. Let me try my hardest. Let me spend as much money as possible. I think you've done all of that. But guess what? Football still comes down to blocking, tackling, and the ability to lead people. And the people you have in charge right now have failed miserably at doing that. So you shouldn't have any problem doing right by the players that are under contract and the fans that spend their hard-earned money and all of their disposable income on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think there's any question that the time has come to start formulating in his mind right now that he's going to make a change. Unless there's some miraculous turnaround by the Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't think that's going to happen because where they suffer and where they're hurting can only get worse at this point because people have tape on them, injuries, the season has started, and now the injuries are piling up. I just don't see, and then the only time you can do this is just with blocking and tackling and getting behind your line of scrimmage, and I think that's the weakest point of his team. So I think it's a moot point to think that he can change with just football stuff. All right. I'm not, for those reasons, that's why I'm not going to talk draft. But we're going to get into a little bit of the structure of all of that stuff. We'll do that in just a second here in the third and final segment on Locked On Jaguars. Man, today's show is also brought to you and sponsored by Game Time. Game Time is the absolute truth, man. It is where you can get tickets to anything and you can get them at any time, last minute and even after the events have started, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, comedy shows, theater, monster trucks, whatever. If they're selling tickets for it, you can go to Game Time and get them, and then there'll be no judgment if you do it at the last minute, because they actually specialize in last minute tickets. That's right. They also have all-in pricing, and this toggling feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Ooh, and I'm telling you, you have to turn the all-in pricing feature on in order for it to work on your app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code that I'm going to spell for you, LOCKEDON NFL, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Man, it's game time. Third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. Go check my other show out. Matter of fact, go check both of them out. There's a new Locked On NFL show with two hosts. One is the madman Tyler Rowland, and it hits you in the morning with a double shot of espresso of NFL action. And then slide over with me in the barbershop where we lay back and chill, and we just talk. And sometimes we pick at other people from around the National Football League, and we use the Locked On Podcast NFL, Locked On NFL experts to show you what's going on around the league. Make sure you check us out over on the Locked On NFL page on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. All right. The Jaguars. We talked about how talk is cheap. Everybody's tired of people standing at the podium, even though we would encourage them to keep doing that. We talked about smoke, fire, and cause. I don't want Shad Khan to sit here and try to figure out the cause. I want Shad Khan to clean all of it out. Just start over, clean all of it out. Don't worry about having to find 30 new people. Find one person, the one person, and charge that person with finding everyone up under them. When Shad bought this team, I recall Shad after they kept Coach Baalke for one season, and then he was let go. And they were asking Shad what he was looking for in a coach. Shad says he doesn't want an egomaniac. And right then, I paused, man, and I shut my eyes, and I was like, that's exactly what you want as a coach. I want an egomaniac because I want a guy that the buck stops with him, whether or not that be the executive vice president, the general manager, or the coach. I want you to ask yourself, really, in the 10 years of this team, let's just go back 10, 12 years, right? Has there ever been one guy to stand up and truly say this, but it resonated with you like he meant it? Has there ever been one guy to truly stand up and say, it's on me, and you believed it? As opposed to it being a guy saying, it's on me, and nice, it's PC. I kind of believe you. Because if you listen to them closely, they'll say, well, you can blame me. Ultimately, it's on me. But they got to do this better. They got to do this better. Or he has to do this better. Or, yeah, it's all on me, but I don't think, and you ask them a question about the past, and they go, I don't really live in the past. What do you mean you don't live in the past? That's how you got here. It's all important. I tell you what, go to court and be in trouble. First of all, you swear and affirm and put your hand on a book that is all about the past. Then when they start introducing stuff in court and they have these case laws and all of that stuff, everything that they do in that area is about precedents that has been set. So how can you have a GM that won't talk about the draft from a year ago? How? How can't you answer questions about past failures and expect people to believe that you're going to get better? Expect people to believe that, okay, I'll forget about what you did in the past, and I'm going to give you all of this power, and I'm going to give all my energy to you to do something that you have shown that you can't do. That's a bunch of BS, man, but that's all you're ever given. I want accountability. There is no real accountability if it's just speak. That's why I said talk is cheap. Nobody being accountable. There's nobody. Ultimately, that's just somebody taking the responsibility and saying you can ask me whatever you want to ask me, like Doug said the other day. Oh, you can put it all on me. Can we? Because if we put it all on you, you wouldn't have a job right now. Would that solve the problem? If they fired Doug Peterson and pressed Taylor into the wind, and they brought in Bobby Slovic or whoever, and he had to be the coach underneath Trent Baalke, would that satisfy you? No, I don't think it will. I think Shad Khan needs to do something. He ain't got to do it this week or next week, but I do believe he needs to start thinking about it now instead of waiting until the end of the year. I don't care if you have to secretly hire a consulting firm. I don't care if you can go get Tom Coughlin, Bill Belichick, and you can tell them all, you can go get Nick Saban and meet in a private room or meet on your yacht somewhere so paparazzi doesn't see you and say, look, all of y'all too old. I ain't letting y'all, none of y'all be our coach. But I will tell you this. Show me what a football organization, and I said Nick Saban for a reason, because he's a taskmaster and he's all about organization. Show me from top to bottom what a football organization should be like. How should it be run? What should I expect of my GMs? Well, go talk, find a GM. Talk to Jimmy Johnson, a coach who was a GM. Talk to Pete Carroll. Just get a. I don't care if you need to get all kinds of people who have won before and sit them on. And everybody I just mentioned has won. Sit them down and say, look, y'all ain't gonna get the job, and I don't need no recommendations from you. But tell me what I should be looking for and what I should expect from operations all the way down to the scouting department, all the way to a coaching staff. There has to be things that winners always do that folks don't see. Until you take this hard approach, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I believe, are going to continue to be, they're just going to continue to keep trying to survive. They're going to continue to keep trying. They're going to be the type of team that continues just to try to survive, to try to figure out a way to get fans happy about the next season, to try to find some new way to sell tickets. All you got to do is fix the football side of it, man, and the tickets, it'll sell itself. But you can't skip stages. You can't believe in people that haven't believed in themselves. You can't, that have no reason for you to believe in them. You can't just believe in people because they speak well and they have a desire to do something. There has to be a proven track record of it being able to get done. You can't be having people in leadership that take excuses. So until the Jaguars do that, y'all stop asking me draft questions. Because that's really like asking me what kind of icing I want to put on the cake, but I ain't sure the dude baking the cake can even bake the cake right. It is just too, I just can't do that. I can't do that. And you as a Jaguar fan shouldn't be trying to do that. Should we draft Travis Hunter or should we trade down? What good is it going to do if you ain't fixed the real problem? What good is it going to do if you ain't fixed the real problem? It doesn't matter. None of it does. And we have to understand that these things are bigger than just that. Just if you think that it's just about, if Trent Baalke and them sitting over there saying, "Ooh, if we had Travis Hunter to go along with Brian Thomas Jr. with Trevor, all of our problems will go away." If you believe that, I got some stuff that I would love to, some land I'd love to sell you. That ain't worth about nothing. I ain't gonna mention no towns because a lot of people are struggling and suffering right now because of the storm, but y'all get my point. Come on, man. Think about it. It's bigger than that. And it starts at the very, very top with Shad Khan. And these are tough conversations that he's going to have with himself in order to get this fixed. It's not going to be fixed overnight. I get that. I'm also going to be here every step of the way with you here on Locked On Jaguars because that's what we do. It is your team every day, and we just try to educate and entertain at the same time. All right, we'll be here every single day. Of course, we got another opponent this week, so come Thursday, we'll do the crossover with the Locked On Coach crew. Hopefully, the Jaguars can at least win this game, right? All right, we'll see about that. And then they had an off day today. There was no pressure, so when they have a pressure tomorrow, we'll talk about that. And tomorrow, I will probably do some cut-ups and go point by point with some of the things that Doug Peterson said in his interview with actual videos. So I'm working on that right now. Until then, you guys take care. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.